Hi. Hi, who's on the line with me? Hi, can everybody hear me? Hi, can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, can you either put something in chat or unmute your phones? Hello?
Hey, there's people here. We're just trying to stay on mute because there's a lot of background noise.
Okay, awesome. And can you guys see the screen?
Yep. I don't know if
Okay,
there's anybody else. It's two of us from the Barrie chapter.
okay, perfect. So I'll start the presentation. So if anybody has any questions, please unmute yourself and ask them. I'm going to start off with a presentation that we did at Regional Guts and then move into more of a fundraising and the moves management and all that fun stuff of fundraising. But I'm going to start off with a presentation that you may or may not have seen. I know some people may have, but a lot of people are new and have not. So when we talk about sponsorship, you'll see all the words up on this slide deck here, everything from brand, marketing, um, marketers, opportunities, mail, events, brands, all things that we associate and corporations associate with sponsorship. So I'm going to skip that slide. Sponsorship pretty much happens everywhere. You'll see it at local runs, at national runs. You'll see it on buildings. You'll see it on the sides of hospitals. You'll see corporate advertising on things like the Air Canada Centre, GM Place, as well as you'll see it on team jerseys. So a few examples here, and I'm sure you guys can all relate to sponsorship that you see in everyday life. Corporate logos are also everywhere. So just up on the screen, you'll see, and most likely familiar with, a ton of corporate logos. When we think corporate logos, these are all companies that in some way or another, they're sponsoring events, they're involved in events, they're giving back to community. A lot of them you'll be familiar with. These are all corporations that can be approached at the national office here. There's, I'd say, more than two handfuls of these that we're in current talks with to become national sponsors in the future of our events and some of our initiatives. So sponsorship is the financial or in-kind support of an activity used to reach specified business goals. A large number of events these days use sponsorship to offer more exciting programs and help defray rising costs. So it allows you to reach specifically target niche markets without any waste. It's a key to powerful marketing. So it offers the possibility of achieving several goals at once. Sponsorship for the Gutsy Walk, why corporations and why people would want to be involved and sponsor. One, they're interested in the event or affiliated with the charity Crohn's and Colitis. Enhancing their image or reputation. There's a lot of companies out there right now that do need to enhance their image and reputation, just how they look in the community and how they're giving back. Shaping consumer attitudes, increased brand awareness and recognition. That's a really big one because brand awareness gets people walking through their doors and really familiarizes people with, hey, I want to give back to the people that are supporting the causes closest to my heart. Driving sales, so people do walk back through sponsors' doors or onto their websites and purchase things from them. So there's an actual sales and monetary cost associated with it, as well as creating positive and publicity and heightening visibility. People sponsor for employee engagement so that we can put together peer-to-peer fundraising and have corporate teams and have a lot of fun and team build and things like that. They do it to differentiate from competitors and then just helping with a good corporate citizenship role. Again, if anyone has any questions as I'm going through this or wants to stop me at any point, please feel free to take yourself off mute and chime in. So types of sponsorship, cash or in-kind contributions. So a cash sponsorship, a business issues payment to the organization. So you approach a sponsor and they're going to give you $1,000 or $5,000 or so on. And in-kind sponsorship is where the business provides a product or service that one, reduces the event or production costs, or two, provides a tangible enhancement to the event experience. So when we talk about things that reduce event production costs, this year we were able to secure a national water sponsor. By doing that, none of the walk sites will have to purchase water for any of the sites, as it will just get delivered to all of the sites and save the costs of whatever water expense was for all the different walk sites. Same with food. I know that we get a lot of food donated and pizza. That just reduces event costs that we would have spent otherwise. Providing a tangible enhancement to the event experience, that's really elevating what we do on the next level and making the experience really special and one to remember. It's the reason people go to events and say, wow, I really had a great time. I want to do that again next year. And there's certain things that we're able to get in kind that allow that to happen. So is it a donation? Sponsorship is typically done with the expectation of a commercial return. While sponsorship can deliver increased awareness, brand building, and propensity to purchase a product or service, it is different than advertising. So, unlike advertising, sponsorship cannot communicate specific product attributes. So sponsorship occurs when a business makes a donation towards the cost of a charity's program, activity, or an event, and in return, the charity advertises or promotes the business brand, product, or services. So sponsors will receive a benefit or advantage for their financial in-kind contribution. So they're going to get brand affiliation, so we're able to offer them logo on collateral, on signage, on our website, presence at the event, whether it be setting up a table or a booth, sampling their products, handing out gift bags, handing out things to all the patrons attending, as well as complimentary tickets. So there may be initiatives and things that we do that we're able to give them complimentary things that they're able to use for their employees and take back. Sponsorships, therefore, because of the benefits associated or the advantage, are not eligible for charitable tax receipts unless the value of the sponsorship can be calculated. Now, in most cases, we can calculate the tax receivable amount, and that's just done through your DCs or RDs. That's something that we're able to do fairly easily because we have everything valued with a matrix. So does anyone have any questions or comments so far? Okay. So what should be considered before deciding to ask for a sponsorship versus a donation? The key thing when you're going to approach someone is to really build rapport with who you're talking to. We don't want to approach people just for the fact that we need something, and we're not going to build a relationship, build any rapport, and kind of just use that person. So we want to make sure that you'll see the two circles there, the you and who you're approaching. That in between where the two circles overlap, that's the connection part that we really want to focus on. We want to really engage who we're approaching, we want to steward who we're approaching, and we want to ensure that they're really connected to what we're doing, and they feel good about what they're doing, because in part, that's how we're going to get them to come back year after year. So things to keep in mind when you're building rapport with someone is, one, what's the connection to the organization? What's the interest and the demographics of your event attendees or the target market? Who are the other sponsors? So are there competitors of some of the people that you're approaching to fund? Are there competitors involved? What is the company's ability to make financial or in-kind contributions? So your local mom and pop shop might not have the $50,000 budget to contribute at certain levels, but you know what? They might be able to come in for $5,000 or $1,500. So really knowing that before you start the conversation is really key. What does the company want in return? Can we realistically provide the benefits of what they're looking for? And last, can the company get this kind of exposure without investment? So all things to really keep in mind when we are building rapport. So this one's an interesting one. Don't rely on compassion. So sponsors know that there's hundreds of charitable organizations that would welcome their sponsorship. So all of the organizations are really doing great things. They're all worthy. They all have great initiatives and great compelling stories to tell. So what we don't want to get bogged down with is like 15-page proposals about how needy and worthy Crohn's and colitis cause is, because it really doesn't differentiate us in any way unless we truly focus on making a business case. So when we talk about sponsorship, it's all about the business case. Sponsors rarely make decisions based on compassion when it comes to marketing and sponsorship dollars. So really focusing on the business case, adding value to their relationship with their target markets, like we said, aligning their values, priorities, concerns, passions, and their target markets, achieving market objectives for them with their target markets, as well as really thinking how can the sponsor and the company that we're approaching, how can they achieve these things with the sponsorship should really be the anchor of the ask that we go out with them for. So the top 5 benefits of sponsoring. So when we talk about why would I sponsor the Gutsy Walk? 1, raise brand awareness. So it goes without saying, businesses sponsor events because it puts their brand in the spotlight for the event. It may not mean a financial gain for the company, but it certainly puts their brand in front of people. It gets a lot of eyes looking at them. It creates a positive PR, and it raises awareness on the organization as a whole and enhances brand credibility. 2, emotional connection. People often spend with their heart, so making an emotional connection to purchase builds brand loyalty. Seeing corporate brand connected to nonprofit, this connection for consumers, quite simply, it shows that the corporate brand cares enough to get involved at the community level, and the brand becomes more appealing. Myself, I like to support companies that support some of my favorite charities. So if I know that this bank or this store is supporting the ballet company that I love or the health charity that I love, I'm more prone to support them and buy from them than I am to see somewhere else. Media exposure. Many nonprofit organizations do what they can to drive media to their events. The benefit, of course, is free earned media exposure that the corporate brand would potentially receive. So we have CTV as our national sponsor, and by partnering with us, CTV is going to be on site. They're going to have anchors on multiple sites across the country. It's getting their brands and getting their exposure, and being a part of an event that's getting that recognition is important to brands. Swag. So we do a lot of swag. As you know, we do the shirts. A poll just went out whether we're going to do bags or caps this year as well. I know that Heidi's working on a few other really neat swag items. Those things, companies like to put their names on them or their logos on them depending on the giving amount. So that becomes very lucrative and a really neat benefit of sponsoring. As well as marketing. Brand credibility is rising. Everything's in the spotlight nowadays, so it really comes down to marketing their business. The businesses want something in return. They want to have those eyes on them, and that's really what it comes down to. So I don't know if you guys have all seen this. If you haven't, please ask your DCs or RDs to share this with you. This is our matrix, and this is what we're able to offer at the different levels. So you'll see the community properties in these columns, the investment properties, and the signature walk properties. The RDs and DCs can break those down as to what properties fall under what, but it shows just the respective benefits that we offer across the board for everything. So you and your staff partner, consulting with DCs, RDs, whoever, really coming up and strategizing who to approach, how much to ask, what to offer as recognition, how the amounts fit into the larger picture of sponsorship at CCC, and be updated on any of the national efforts for sponsorship across all the provinces. We do have quite a few national initiatives out there with some of the large banks, with some of the large gas companies, some major retailer and grocery chains. So really knowing those, because you can use those to your advantage if they're partners or they affiliates of some of the local businesses, it makes it a very, very easy ask. So really consulting and having those conversations and working together is important. Tools and resources that we can provide, which we should provide if you haven't already got them. Letter templates, proposal templates, sponsor and package kits, advice about sponsor recognition at the events, execution of benefits, as well as any coaching that's required. We are able to be that resource and provide that to you. One of the key things whenever asking for money or asking for anything is not to feel intimidated. If you don't ask for something, you're never going to get it, and people are used to being asked for things. So it's really having that confidence and being secure that you can go out and speak to local businesses, you can speak to your bank branches, you can speak to corporate offices, you can speak to executives, because they're used to it. They're used to thousands of charities that are out there asking them for things on a daily basis. And really, it's just about building that rapport, having that human connection, and really informing and educating them on this fantastic event that we do, and the great cause that it supports for the 250,000 Canadians that live with the diseases. This fantastic event is raising awareness, advocacy, and money for research for them. So really having that human connection conversation and building excitement and building engagement around it, that ask becomes a very easy ask. So where to start? We want to identify sponsorship opportunities. We want to determine the fair dollar values depending on the community, region, or who you're going to ask. We want to look at who's supported in the past. Those are usually the easiest ones to get back and have the best probability of bringing back, is looking at who's been at my walk sites in past years, and then who supports charities in your community. Often by looking at other events happening in the community, what you'll start to see, if you put a few of them side by side, is you'll start to see that the same companies and the same local businesses sponsor all the events. They like being involved in community. They like having those eyes on them. You'll start to see the repetition of a lot of local businesses and corporations sponsoring the same things, because it's very competitive for them. Starting to look in your circle of influence. So who's in your network? Usually your network is going to start very small with family, to friends, move to some of your contacts, whether it be work contacts, whether it be board contacts, whether it be social contacts. And going out, the last and hardest one is just strangers, and walking into that cold, walking in cold to a business that you might not be familiar with, or you don't have any relationship with, and starting a relationship. So really identifying who's in your circles, and you might have more in some, and you might feel more comfortable only dealing with family and friends, or you might want to venture out and walk down a street in your region and approach this car dealership and this restaurant and so on, and just have those conversations. This one we're not going to do. So I'm going to pull up the next slide. While I'm doing that, if anyone wants to unmute and ask any questions about this slide, please feel free to do so while I'm getting the next one up. Does anyone have any questions on the first 25 minutes? Okay, so we're going to move on to fundraising then, and really how we start to go deeper into making those asks and starting to track and hold ourselves accountable for fundraising. And again, this slide here, you'll start to see some of the key words that come to mind when you start thinking about fundraising. And you'll see a lot of similar words, whether it be partnerships or organizations. You'll see events and relationships and research and all the great things that we do when we fundraise. So I'd love to know right now, and I do encourage you to come off mute, and you can do it one at a time and just chime in. What comes to your mind when we first talk about fundraising? And me finishing the next 30 minutes before opening up for more questions, what are some things that you guys would like to walk away with from this presentation, just so I know as I move on to the remaining slides that I can really tackle and make that a priority to answer for you and really be that resource that you need. Anyone? I see Betty's got her hand up. No. Okay. I'm going to continue. So when we talk about fundraising, you'll often hear the term moves management. I don't know how many on the line are fundraisers or work in a fundraising environment, but moves management is very important when we look at fundraisers. And moves management is a term primarily used in the nonprofit sector in relationship to donor and sponsor development. It refers to a process which the prospective donor or sponsor is moved from cultivation or solicitation, and moves are the actions the organization takes and the individuals take for fundraising to establish relationships and renew contributions. So you'll see it follows a circle. The very first thing you'll do, like we just talked at the end of the sponsorship, is identify who it is you're going to approach. You'll then want to research who it is you approach and know some things about their business. When you walk into a business or a local corporation, a dealership, they love to hear when you know facts and stats on who they support or how big they are or other initiatives they're involved in. When you're able to give it back to them, they know you've done your research, and that just engages them more in a stronger relationship with you. From there, you'll cultivate the relationship and you'll have those conversations with them to the point where you'll solicit and make the ask. When you make the ask, it's going to either go two ways. They're going to say yes or they're going to say no. And if they say maybe, they're just on the fence and you just need to go back, cultivate, and re-ask again. And the main thing is regardless of what they say, we want to ensure that we steward that relationship so that we can go back to them. A lot of times, if we don't steward a relationship and we just identify a prospect and approach them, ask them for money, and then don't engage them or have any relationship with them and go back to them an entire year, 12 months later and try that ask again, it's not going to be successful. So we want to make sure that the stewardship piece of it is really key and we're able to have a genuine relationship and really steward along whoever it is we're talking to. Move definition. So in fundraising, a planned call with a predetermined and specific objective and fixed action that brings a prospective donor closer to making a contribution to the organization. It's a significant enough contact that you'd like to follow up with by submitting a call report. You've accomplished by either letter, telephone, personal visit, but almost always in person, and completed by a member of the development team, volunteer team, RDs, DCs, anybody really working on it. That really defines what a move is. So in sales, a no just means you need to overcome another objection. You'll hear no a lot, especially if you're making phone calls to local businesses. where they'll say, oh, you know what, now's not a good time. Can I call you, but can you call back later? From a sales strategy, they're just saying that because you haven't sold them on what it is you're approaching them for. So you'll often get a lot of no's before you get that yes, and you'll see in the diagram there all the no balls and the yes is hidden inside there. Whenever I hear a no and I'm approaching corporate sponsors or any of the donors, I really want to find out why they've said no and really get to the bottom of it. Because if I can find out why they're saying no and overcome that objection, the chance of me getting them to say yes is very, very high probability. So you want to ensure that you don't feel defeated, or you don't feel, okay, they said no, there's just no option. If you believe firmly enough that there's a reason they should be involved, it's really about selling them and not taking no for an answer. So some key sales tactics. So when you pitch your proposal, a conscientious potential prospect is going to barrage you with objections. So how to overcome some sales objections is really know the organization you're representing. So for Crohn's and Colitis Canada, what is our mission? What are the values? What's the vision? What's the impact we have? A lot of that information can be found on the website. It can also be found in our annual report. It can be found by touching base with any of the DCs or RDs. But knowing that is key to overcoming any of the sales objections. Because a lot of the times, the people that you're approaching will relate to our mission, our value, our vision, or the impact that we have. What is the compelling story? So is the compelling story family related? Do you have a loved one or a family member that's suffering from one of these diseases and you can speak to it directly? Do you have a close friend that's suffering from these diseases? Are you able to approach someone who has a family member or a friend that's suffering? Really finding this compelling story and engaging and really going on that. Overcoming objections, one of the key ones is being a listener, really valuing people and listening to what they have to say. A lot of the times when you approach a donor or you approach a corporation, they'll tell you everything and you basically paraphrase it back and it's a yes. So really listening to everything that they have to say. Overcoming an objection by offering a solution. So having a solution to any obstacle or problem that they may face you with. Relating to any objection keep coming back to the empathy part. Don't stop at a brush off. Send me some information is a classic that you'll likely have heard before. Use that so that you can set up a meeting. Say that, hey, I'd like to get in front of you. I'd like to really come to your office or come to the dealership, stop by your restaurant for lunch, and I'd love to go over it with you. We are the biggest advocates and we are the best at what we do. So we don't want to rely on a piece of paper or our annual report, let's say, to give the message to someone who may not be familiar with the organization. And that goes back to the personal touch part that I spoke of on the first set of slides. We want to make sure that there is that personal connection and that we are able to have that with people that we're looking to approach for money. Don't want to undervalue the organization you're representing. So how do we undervalue the organization? One of the ways we do that would be by really looking at that stewardship matrix and sponsorship matrix that I showed you earlier and saying, you know what, you only have $100, but I'm going to give you a table at the event. I'm going to see if we can put Um, Lastly, when it comes to sales tactics and overcoming objections, is we don't take things personally. We we want to have that human connection. We want to hear what they have to say, listen to them, um, and move on. I see you have your hand up. Did you have a question for me? No. Okay. Moving on. Just the key sales tactics when we're going out is objections are opportunities. Whenever we have an objection in front of us, it's an opportunity for a greater thing. How to sell what we're doing, we have to show the benefit. We need to build that rapport. We have to overcome objections. We have to ask for the sale. Again, if you don't ask for and close, when I say ask, it's really closing. It's really having the conversation, building the rapport, building the engagement, and then asking them to be involved. I'd really like to see you for dealership. I'd like to see you participate and bring your employees down to one of the walk sites this year. We'd love if you wanted to set up a table and promote the dealership. It's going to cost you $5,000 to do that, and we'd ensure that your experience and your employees have a phenomenal time, and you're supporting such a great cause. Can we count on your support today for that? And just ending it like that is making the ask and making sure that you're being as bold to just throw that in there and ask no matter what level it is that you're asking for. Another thing is ensuring that you're asking, you're starting at a higher level than you think you're going to get. So if you think you're going to get, if you think you've identified a prospect and you've done your research and you think their capacity is $500 or $1,000 to give to the organization, you want to ensure that you ask them for $1,500 because then they're always going to come back to you, regardless of what amount you ask them for. And if you ask them for 15, they'll come back and say, well, you know what? We have a budget and we usually allocate $1,000 to events like this. And then you're getting exactly what you thought you were going to get in the first place. And that happens all the time. A lot of our national asks when we approach corporations and some of the big banks, we always ensure that we're asking far more than we're expecting to get. Because we know they're just going to come back and say, oh, well, I can't do $1 million, but how does this 750,000 sound? Say, that sounds pretty good. Having those conversations and using some of those key sales tactics are really key. Making the ask, ensure that we always ask is key. Some tips when we are going out and fundraising is don't forget most businesses support charities in some way, and the worst thing they can do is say no. So don't be afraid to ask them. The more you ask, if you ask 1 in every 10 is going to convert, or 2 in every 10 is going to convert, you have to make sure you're getting the volume in to continue asking. You volunteer for something you believe in, so don't be ashamed or shy to ask others to support our collective efforts. Again, building that rapport and really sharing, having those intimate, genuine moments where you're talking about yourself, you're talking about a family member, you're talking about a loved one, you're talking about a close friend and a work colleague. You're talking about someone who is living with the disease on a daily basis, and really talking about that, seeing if Crohn's or colitis is in any of the lives of the people you're approaching, and really getting that collective effort together is key. Focusing on the impact of IBD, some of the stats, the stories, we've got a lot of great stats, a lot of great stories on our website. We just came out with our research report in the last, I believe it was 2 weeks, that's been out. So that should be on the website now at this point. Finding out who the names of the proprietor or most senior staff person for that business is. If that person isn't available, try to get a sense of when they will have some time. So when you're approaching a dealership or a restaurant, let's try and make sure that we're speaking to the owner or the manager of the place, because usually when we have the conversations with those people, they're able to pass down to the employees and everyone all the great things that we're bringing to them. Be prepared with some materials to leave behind. So both about Crohn's and Colitis Canada, and also about the Gutsy Walk region event that you're inquiring about. So the DCs, RDs can get some really neat folders that we have here. On one side, you can put a one-pager or two-pager proposal for your actual regional Gutsy Walk chapter event. On the other side, you can include the annual report. You can include a buck clip for the Gutsy Walk or the research report. Again, all of that will depend on the rapport that you've built with the person that you're approaching and what the relationship is. Again, making a personal connection, even in the world of sponsorship, personal relationships are a huge factor. Ask them about their knowledge of IBD, and let them tell you what they know about IBD. It's fascinating when I go to meetings and I ask people, what do you know about IBD? What do you know about gut health? What do you know about Crohn's disease? What do you know about colitis, ulcerative colitis? And having them start that conversation, because a lot of times you'll find they won't bring it up unless you ask them. And when you do ask them, they'll get so engaged with it. Some of the times I go in to have a conversation and make an ask for a proposal, and because I've asked that question, 15 minutes later, I'm still being told a really compelling story, and I'm building great rapport with the person that I'm talking to, because they have a connection, a human connection to the cause, and they're really spilling it all to me, and I'm able to relate to it because I'm the one who approached them. Do they have a connection? And sharing your personal experience with IBD and your involvement with CCC. Sharing why you volunteer. Why are you doing this? What does it mean to you? And how long you've been doing it. That's really compelling, and that allows others to really be motivated by what you're doing, because it's so appreciated. Stay positive and smile. Again, you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of objections. You're going to get a lot of obstacles. The key is always smiling. A smile is the shortest distance between two people. I've managed call centers in my career, and I've always told my team that when you're smiling, talking to someone on the phone, they'll know that you're smiling because they feel it in the energy that you're putting out there. So whether you're doing it on the phone or you're in person, always make sure that you're smiling, staying positive, and approaching it with clear vision. So that brings me to the end of sponsorship and fundraising for the Gutsy Walk. Now I would encourage you to unmute and ask me any questions you have in the last 10 minutes of this webinar on anything that I can be of a support to you and provide you resource for and answer any of those questions. Betty, I see your hand up, but I can't hear you. So I don't know if you're on mute or you haven't dialed in, but if you don't have access to a phone or your computer microphone isn't working, please feel free to use the chat in the GoToWebinar. I can answer any questions on the chat as well. So if you're um, not able to speak, feel free to enter your questions in the chat. Anything? I've got Betty, Emily, Graham, and Matthew as attendees. Do you have any questions on anything I just presented? Anything I can be of help, a resource to you? My contact information is on the slide that you see right now. So if you don't have any questions right now, I am going to end the webinar, and feel free to email me at cweber@crohnsandcolitis.ca or call me at the office. I'm at extension 244, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for you, help you with any of the asks that you're approaching, and provide you any resources that you need, whether it be templates or proposal templates, letters, all that fun stuff. So please feel free to reach out to me and ask me anything that I could be of assistance of. And again, we thank you from the national office for all of the efforts. We're all an incredible team, and we're so thankful for everybody involved in the Gutsy Walk. Okay, well, no questions. Everybody's on mute. Please feel free to reach out to me. Tend to, and that is all for my presentation. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and look forward to hearing or speaking to you soon. Thank you.